If you're planning to take the TOEFL test anytime soon, there is one thing you should know. TOEFL is all about academic vocabulary. So the first thing you need to prepare for is reading texts, listening to lectures, and even writing essays about art, geology, sociology, physics, astronomy, biology, and other subjects. Without these words, all the strategies you learn won't help you score high. Remember, TOEFL is designed to ensure that you'll be able to survive in college, which involves listening to academic lectures, reading tons of articles and research, and doing written assignments on these topics. So, like it or not, you need this vocabulary to score 100 plus. So in this video, we're going to talk about important words and phrases that will help you ace the test. We'll start by talking about the most common words you'll see on the TOEFL test. Then we'll discuss prefixes to help you guess the meaning of unfamiliar vocabulary, which is great for vocabulary questions. We'll also look at idiomatic phrases for the speaking section and writing phrases to score 30 out of 30. Finally, we'll go even deeper by delving into the subjects you'll see a lot on the TOEFL, such as zoology, biology, astronomy, and history. Believe me, knowing all these words will make it much easier for you to understand TOEFL reading and listening and answer the questions correctly. After you finish watching this video, you can test yourself by taking some reading and listening practice tests. You can use these videos to do this. I'm sure you'll hear many of the words from this video in them. Without further ado, let's dive in. I've collected 37 words you'll see a lot on the TOEFL reading and listening sections that'll help you get the score you want. You'll also see many of them on the writing and speaking parts of the test. So let's get right to them. As always, don't forget to take a piece of paper and make 2 columns. In one column, put a plus for the words you know. In the second column, put a minus and write the word itself. This will help you remember the words you didn't know. At the end of this video, write winner in the comments if you know all the words, or tell us how many words from the list you knew. The first word in our list is the word abruptly. Abruptly means suddenly or unexpectedly. You'll see this word a lot on the TOEFL. You can use it in essays, especially in the writing for an academic discussion task. You can also use it in speaking, when summarizing lectures in questions 3 and 4. For example, the car stopped abruptly when the driver slammed on the brakes. So remember, abruptly equals suddenly. 2. Derive from. When you say that something derives or is derived from something else, you mean that it comes from that thing. People can derive money from foreign investments, derive satisfaction from playing sports, or derive revenue from oil. Many of our modern technologies derive from or come from scientific discoveries made in the 20th century. 3. Facilitate. To make a process easier or more efficient. Using a calendar application can facilitate keeping track of your appointments. Another word on our list is abandon. It means to leave something or someone behind, or to give up on something. Someone might abandon their job, their family, or children, which is a negative usage, or an idea. For example, when the car stopped working, the driver had to abandon it and call for help. 5. Date back to have existed since a certain time in the past. This phrase is extremely popular in reading passages and academic lectures about archaeology. Let's say you're reading about archaeological excavations. You can see a sentence: the ancient ruins date back to the Roman Empire. 6. Accumulate. To gather or collect over time. People can accumulate knowledge through study or experience. They might also accumulate energy, money, experience, or days off. On the TOEFL, you might see a sentence like this: solar panels accumulate energy from the sun throughout the day. This means that they collect energy from the sun. 7. Viable. When something is viable, it has the ability to grow or function properly. A viable business has the resources to succeed. This word is a synonym for workable or feasible. And again, you'll see it quite often in TOEFL reading passages and lectures. You can say that the proposed plan is viable and can be implemented within the next few months. 8. Rely on, to depend on, or trust something or someone to do something. I rely on my smartphone to stay organized and keep track of important tasks. You can rely on your friends and family, rely on the weather, or rely on technology. 9. Ban, to officially prohibit something. The school has decided to ban cell phones in class. This word is so good for the TOEFL speaking section, especially the second question. You may also use it in the writing for an academic discussion task. When talking about the official decisions and new policies, if you want to work on a full speaking section and hear me answer the same questions, check out this video. Also, I'm going to release more videos on the TOEFL speaking part, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to be notified when the next video comes out. 10. Compelling. Something compelling is very convincing or interesting. The plot of the movie was so compelling that I couldn't stop watching it. 11. Boost. To increase or improve something. Drinking a smoothie in the morning can boost your energy for the day. 12. Adjust. To change something slightly, to make it better or more suitable. I had to adjust the car seat so that I could reach the pedals comfortably. 13. Curtail. To stop something before it's finished, or to reduce or limit something. The company decided to curtail its spending. Now, at the beginning of this video, I said that your vocabulary is the second most common reason for not reaching the target score on the reading and listening sections. What is the first? It's not being familiar with the strategies for each type of question and not knowing how to use them effectively in each situation. Let's take a look at a typical TOEFL student I see most often in my Zoom classes. They know many advanced words. They can understand the text perfectly. They even know some strategies, but they can't apply these strategies in different situations. And they're struggling with time. They put too much effort into each type of question. They don't know how to avoid common pitfalls on the test. And they end up frustrated at the end of each section. If you want to solve all these problems and ace the TOEFL reading section, click on the link below and join our TOEFL course. We'll address all of these issues and teach you high-scoring writing and speaking templates. The link is below. Click on it and get your dream TOEFL score quickly and effectively. We're moving on. 14. Contribute. To give or add something to a larger whole. Volunteers contributed their time and effort to help clean up the park. 15. Deliberately. This adverb means done intentionally or on purpose. She deliberately chose a bright color for the room to make it more cheerful. 13. Address. To address means to deal with or tackle a problem or issue. The manager asked the team to address the issue of the broken equipment. 17. Anticipate. To expect something to happen and perhaps even to prepare for it. No one anticipated this problem. 18. Extinction. Extinction is when a species no longer exists. The dodo bird is famous for its extinction in the 17th century. 19. Decay. To rot or disintegrate over time. The old leaves on the forest floor began to decay. The last two words, extinction and decay, appear repeatedly in reading passages and lectures about archaeology. While this video focuses more on the general advanced vocabulary you might need for the TOEFL test, you should also remember to cover the vocabulary specific to the fields of archaeology, biology, art, history, and others. We already have videos on biology, zoology, history, and astronomy vocabulary, but we'll soon have one on archaeology as well. So stay tuned and don't miss out. 20. Extract. To remove or take something out of a larger whole. The chef had to extract the juice from the lemon for the recipe. 21. Arduous. Something that is arduous is very difficult and requires a lot of effort. This word is often used to describe tiring activities. Climbing the mountain was an arduous task. but the view at the top was worth it. 22. Attribute, to regard something as being caused by something else. We attribute the success of the event to the hard work of the volunteers. 23. Consensus, a general agreement among a group of people. The team reached a consensus to start the project next month. 24. Fertile, in agriculture. Fertile describes land that is capable of producing abundant crops or vegetation. The fertile soil in the valley is perfect for growing vegetables. 25. Hamper. Hamper means to slow down or make difficult. The blizzard hampered the delivery of packages. 26. Counter. To counter means to respond to something with an opposing opinion or action. The scientist has countered the claim with new evidence. 27. Deceive. To make someone believe something that is not true. The magician deceived the audience with his clever tricks. 28. Customize. To change something to suit one's own needs or preferences. You can customize your phone settings to suit your preferences. 29. Dense. Tightly packed or having a lot of material in a small space. The fog was so dense that you could hardly see the car in front of you. 30. Enable. To make something possible or to make someone able to do something. The new app will enable users to track their exercise progress. 31. Deficiency. A deficiency is a lack or shortage of something that is needed. I can say, the doctor found a calcium deficiency in the patient's blood test. 32. Eradicate. To eradicate means to completely destroy or get rid of something. Scientists are working hard to eradicate malaria from affected regions. 33. Disruption. A major disturbance or interruption. The power outage caused a major disruption in our workday. 34. Expose. To make something visible or reveal it. The documentary aims to expose the truth about wildlife trafficking. 35. Distinguish. To distinguish means to recognize the differences between two people, ideas, or things. It's easy to distinguish between a cat and a dog by their size and characteristics. 36. Durable. Something that is durable is built to withstand wear, pressure, or damage. A durable material, such as stainless steel, for example, doesn't rust or break easily. 37. Estimate. To make an approximate calculation of the cost or size of something. We need to estimate how much paint is needed to cover the roof. I also have some exciting news to share. We've just introduced the option of group classes. A lot of people have been asking whether they can study together with friends or family, and many simply want a TOEFL companion to share the journey with. So we've decided to give this a try. If you're looking for a more affordable alternative to our regular one-on-one sessions, group classes might be the perfect fit. Click the link below to learn more and see if it's right for you. After studying tons of TOEFL practice tests, I've noticed that there are certain words that appear very often in reading passages and lectures, and they don't belong to any specific subject. These are the words that you will often find in academic articles and texts. And these are the words you'll usually need to answer questions on the TOEFL reading and listening sections. So in this video, I have collected 57 of the most common words you'll see on the TOEFL reading and listening sections that'll help you get the score you want. 1. Commodity. This word is super popular on the TOEFL, and I often see it in the reading passages. What's more important, it's often necessary to answer the questions. So, a commodity is any useful or valuable thing, especially something that you can buy or sell, like food, clothes, or electronics. So, coffee, grains, or precious metals are all examples of commodities. I've just seen this word mentioned a few times in 2 random reading passages, so it's really common for the TOEFL reading. 2. Exploit. If you use someone or something, usually selfishly or for profit, you'll exploit them. Factory owners can exploit their employees, making them work overtime.
So to exploit is to use something or someone unfairly for your own benefit. On the TOEFL, however, you'll often see this word used in a slightly different sense. It usually means to make good use of something. For example, to exploit natural resources. The next word on our list is cultivate. The original meaning of this word is to prepare and use land for crops or gardening. So you'll often see it used in texts and lectures about agriculture. People can cultivate fields, gardens, or land. This word can also mean to develop or improve something, such as a skill or relationship. For demise. Demise is the end of something. It can be the end of a person's life or anything else. We often use this word in medical or legal language, or when we want to sound formal. On the TOEFL, you'll often see this word used to describe the final stage of something. For example, the demise of a company or the demise of a relationship. 5. Prosperity. Another super popular word on the TOEFL test that I see all the time. Prosperity usually means being successful, especially financially. In the US, the decades after World War II were characterized by rising prosperity, with large numbers of people moving into the middle class. The adjective prosperous is also very typical for the TOEFL reading and listening sections. It means financially successful. Speaking of the word decade from the example I just gave, this is our next word. A decade is a period of 10 years. We have a decade, 10 years, a century, 100 years, and a millennium, 1,000 years. We actually have an entire course dedicated to TOEFL preparation, where we teach you all the words you need to know to score consistently high on each section of the test. We have lists of words organized by topic, templates for effective speaking and writing responses, strategies for each question type, and more. I'll leave the link to the course below. Another important word to know is alteration. Alteration means a change or modification. The verb to alter means to make something different or to change something, such as altering a plan or altering a law. Remember 3 words with a similar meaning: to alter, to modify, to change. You'll often need them for the TOEFL reading. 8. Intermittently. I can't tell you how many times I see this word. It's a fancy way of saying from time to time, periodically. The adverb intermittently describes something that starts, then stops, and then starts up again. If you studied intermittently last night, it means that sometimes you studied, but sometimes you took breaks to do other things. A phrase with a similar meaning is off and on. We came across it just recently in one of our reading videos. This phrase means that something happens periodically, like working off and on, or visiting off and on. So remember, off and on or intermittently mean at intervals, not continuously. 10. Extensive. For some reason, this is one of the favorite words of the TOEFL creators. They use it in practically every reading passage or lecture I've ever worked with, and believe me, there have been many. The first and the most popular meaning is covering a large area. For example, extensive road repairs, extensive grounds, or extensive agriculture. So imagine something that covers a large area. That's extensive. Extensive can also mean having a great range. If your knowledge of the TOEFL test is extensive, you know a lot about it. If an event gets extensive coverage in the newspapers, it means many people are writing about it. Next is the word sophisticated. When something is sophisticated, it's complicated and intricate. The inner workings of a computer are sophisticated. It's difficult to understand them unless you're a computer expert. High school math is a lot more sophisticated than grammar school math. Driving a car is more sophisticated than riding a bike. On the TOEFL, you'll often find mentions of sophisticated computer models, sophisticated systems, or sophisticated tools used by Asian people. 12. Diverse. Various, very different. It's another common word that pops up in almost every passage. Diverse means that something has many different parts or elements, such as diverse culture or diverse wildlife. 13. Abruptly, suddenly or without warning. 14. Result in, to cause something to happen. For example, high economic growth results in higher inflation. 15. Mild, not severe or intense. We often use mild when talking about the weather or climate. Mild weather isn't too cold or too hot. This is the meaning that's most popular on the TOEFL test. However, this word can also be used in other areas. For example, mild criticism, not severe. A mild heart attack, not too serious. The next group of words have similar meanings. They are drastically, dramatically, and spectacularly. I see all three of them all the time, both in the reading and listening. On the TOEFL, they usually mean extremely or a lot. For example, their budget has been drastically reduced. Reduced a lot. The nature of conflict has changed dramatically. Has changed a lot. This attempt failed spectacularly. Significantly failed. 19. Tolerate, to accept or put up with something. You can tolerate noise or a person. Some people don't tolerate rude behavior. 20. Threat, an impending danger that has the potential to cause serious harm. TOEFL reading passages usually have many examples of threats, such as enemy threats, health threats, death threats, and so on. A popular collocation is imminent threat. It's a synonym for impending danger. One more very common word on both the reading and listening sections of the TOEFL is decline. To decline means to decrease or diminish in quantity or quality. We use it when something is getting smaller or worse. For example, the decline of a business or the decline of a population. 22. Coerce, to force someone to do something against their will. You can coerce a person to do something, or coerce a decision or a confession from a person. Again, just recently, I saw this word in one of the reading passages we were doing in a one-on-one session with my student. 23. Retreat, to go away from a place or person, to escape from fighting or danger. The TOEFL likes to use this word in a variety of contexts. You can find information about lizards retreating into the shade, or retreating shares of a company. We can even find it in the integrated speaking questions. For example, question 3 may be about a psychological term in which the speaker understands that their proposals were clearly unreasonable and is forced to retreat. So expect to see this word in many contexts. 24. Initially, in the beginning, at first. 25. Eventually, in the end, especially after a long time or a lot of effort. A similar word that is often given as a paraphrase for the word eventually is ultimately. It means finally, after a series of things have happened. For example, the company ultimately succeeded, or the company ultimately failed. 27. Rival. A few days ago, one of my students made a mistake in the reading passage because she didn't know this word. So I decided to include it in today's list. A rival is a person or thing that competes with another. So it's a synonym for the word competitor. The question she had was the sentence simplification question about terrestrial plants that had the advantages of not having rivals. In the text, there was a line about the land of opportunity, free of competitors. Because she didn't know the word rivals, she couldn't find the right answer. This is a typical example of why you should know synonyms. Otherwise, you'll waste time when answering the questions, and you may make mistakes. 28. Data. Information. 29. Conventional. Usual, traditional, ordinary. It's a super popular word that I've also seen used in vocabulary questions. I also see it a lot in the TOEFL reading passages. You can find information about conventional explanation of something, conventional farming, conventional medicine, or weapons. 30. Supersede. to replace or surpass something. Some common collocations are supersede a law, supersede a record. Let's look at a typical sentence you might see on the TOEFL test. They still used stone tools similar to those superseded in Europe by metal tools thousands of years ago. Superseded, replaced. As you can see, the most effective way to remember all these new and difficult words is to think of simpler synonyms for them that you already know. That way, the next time you see the word supersede, you'll remember the word replace and will know what it means. Another super popular word I decided to include in this list is fossils. This word means remains or impressions of ancient plants or animals. Fossils look like this. You'll often find lectures and texts about fossils of dinosaurs. Again, I see this word all the time, and you just have to know it. 32, flourish, to grow or develop successfully. Just as your tomatoes can flourish in the summer, countries, companies, cultural life, the shipbuilding industry, computer technology, and lots of other things and spheres can flourish. People can also flourish, which means that they are successful. Remember we talked about the word prosperity earlier? Well, a synonym for to flourish is to prosper. Another synonym for this word we have on our list is to thrive. Your business or your relationships can thrive. So, remember these three words: to thrive, to prosper, to flourish. All of them mean to be successful. 34, disruption, an interruption or disturbance. 35, decay. Another word TOEFL creators love and use all the time. To decay means to rot or become weaker. For example, a building or a relationship can both decay. I recently had a text about how Venice's role as a storage and distribution center for spices, silk, and gold decayed, which means it became weaker and ultimately the city lost its monopoly. If you've taken at least a few TOEFL practice tests, you've probably also come across the idea that carbon decays in living things. Because carbon is radioactive, it decays over time, which means the older artifacts have less carbon than younger ones. This is why so many readings and lectures mention radiocarbon dating, which is a method that uses the decay of carbon to determine the age of organic materials. 36, rigid, stiff, or fixed, something that can be moved or bent. 37, preserve, to keep something from decay or destruction. Simply put, to keep something safe. You can preserve a culture or preserve a historical site. By the way, a site is a place. 38, depletion, the act of reducing or using something up. Some common collocations with this word are depletion of resources, soil depletion, or depletion of a population. 39, estimate, to guess or calculate the cost, size, or value of something. As a verb, this word is pronounced estimate. It can also be used as a noun. In this case, we'd say an estimate. An estimate is a judgment or calculation of approximately how large or how great something is. If the mechanic's bill is much higher than the estimate they gave you, for example, you have a right to be angry. 40, impact, the effect or influence of something on something else. Remember these three words: an impact, an influence, an effect. They are often used as paraphrases on TOEFL. The word impact can also mean the force or action of one object hitting another. For example, the moment two comets collide is called the moment of impact. 41, inhibit, to prevent or stop something from happening. You can inhibit a process or inhibit a reaction. For example, this is the main factor inhibiting online access. Preventing online access. 42, hibernation. This word is extremely common in academic lectures. Hibernation is a type of deep sleep that some animals, such as bears for example, go into during the winter. So simply put, hibernation is like taking a long nap. 43. Divert. The verb to divert means to change the direction or course of something. The police will divert traffic if there has been an accident, which is blocking the road. And it's a good idea to divert some of your income into a savings account so you don't spend it all. On the TOEFL, you may find mentions of diverted traffic, information, diverted public attention, or investigation. 44. Tremendous. Extremely large. For example, tremendous success or tremendous failure. A similar word is enormous. This word also means very big. An animal can be of an enormous size, or your parents can have an enormous influence on your life. 46. Emerge. To appear, to come out. Many different things can emerge. For example, details, patterns, trends, differences, or theories. A person can emerge from the crowd, or plants often emerge from the ground. 47. Expand. This word comes up all the time on the TOEFL. To expand means to increase in size or scope. You'll find texts about the universe, economy, business, or industries expanding. Markets or cities can also expand. 48. Proliferation. The act of increasing or spreading rapidly. 49. Escalate. To become greater or more serious. The situation started to escalate around noon. The credit crisis is escalating as expected. 50. Surplus. A surplus is something extra or left over. If your tree produces more apples than you can eat, you can make applesauce with the surplus of apples. You will often come across texts about surplus food, surplus money, surplus supplies. 51. Eliminate. This word is a must on the reading and listening sections of the TOEFL. To eliminate means to remove or get rid of something. This is what you do with the 4 answer options you get. First, you eliminate 2 options that are definitely wrong. You can also eliminate a problem, a possibility, or a risk. 52. Purchase. To buy something. For example, purchase a house or a car. 53. Obtain. To get something. You can obtain a degree, obtain information, permission, approval, or obtain a job. The next 3 words on our list have similar meanings. They are obligatory, mandatory, and compulsory. If something is obligatory, mandatory, or compulsory, you must do it because of a rule or a law. For example, this is mandatory to help prevent fraud. Registration was obligatory, but voting was optional. The study skills courses were almost always compulsory. You'll see these words all the time, so be sure to write them down if you don't know them. 57. Predominant. More noticeable or important, or greater in number than others. The predominant colors, however, were black and yellow. Look at these words. Anticlimactic, reacquaint, antecedent, circumvent, descend, extraterrestrial, permeate. Do you know what they mean? If not, can you guess their meaning? While you don't need to know all of them to get a 30 out of 30 on test day, you often need to be able to guess the meaning of difficult words you encounter in the reading, listening, writing, and even speaking sections of the test. Sometimes you can do this from context. However, there may be situations where the context won't be of much help. In that case, there is another way to figure out the meaning of the word, which we'll talk about in today's video. I decided to share a strategy with you that will help you find out what many unfamiliar words mean, and also allow you to learn 100 essential words for the TOEFL test. So, what's the strategy then? We can use our knowledge of prefixes, suffixes, and roots. For those of you who don't know, the root is the main part of a word that gives us its basic meaning. For example, in the word unhappy, the root is happy. Now, a prefix is a small part added to the beginning of a root word. to change its meaning. For example, the prefix "un" in unhappy means not, so unhappy means not happy. Finally, a suffix is a small part added to the end of a root word to change its form or meaning. In this video, we'll only focus on important prefixes, but if you find this lesson helpful, let me know in the comments and I'll make 2 more videos talking about roots and suffixes. Quick note for those of you who may be wondering, why do I need to learn prefixes? How will this information help me ace the TOEFL test? Learning prefixes is a great way to learn tons of novel words and to guess the meanings of the unfamiliar ones, because many prefixes have consistent meanings. For example, if you know that pre means before, you can guess that preview means to view something before it's shown, while pre-med is the name for undergraduate courses that prepare students to enter medical school after graduation, which means they're taken before medical school. So, in this video, we'll explore some common prefixes and the words they create. Let's get started. The first prefix is anti. As you might have guessed, this prefix means against. Let's look at some common words with it. Antisocial, against being social, not wanting to be with others. Antifreeze, against freezing. An antifreeze is a liquid that prevents engines from freezing. Antivirus, against viruses. It's the software that removes computer viruses. Antibody, against some foreign substances. An antibody is a protein that fights harmful substances in the body. Antigen, a substance that causes the immune system to react. Antithesis, the complete opposite of something. The word is used to describe a person or a thing that is the direct opposite of something or someone else. Anticlimactic, when something seems like it's going to be exciting, but then it lets you down, it's anticlimactic. Let's look at a few examples. After all the build-up and suspense, the movie's ending was anticlimactic, leaving the audience disappointed. Her calm and composed demeanor was the antithesis of his angry and impulsive behavior. When a foreign antigen enters the body, the immune system responds by producing antibodies to fight it. As you can see, one prefix gives us 7 advanced words that are often seen in academic contexts. Prefix number 2, contra. Just as our first prefix, contra means against. Contradict, to say the opposite. Contravene, to act contrary to a rule or law. For example, the company knew its actions contravened international law. Contraband, goods that are prohibited by law. They're against the law. One important thing to remember, just knowing a lot of words won't help you ace the TOEFL test. In my one-on-one sessions, I now have a large number of people preparing for the TOEFL reading, and I'll tell you that most of them have a fairly extensive vocabulary. However, their main problem is that they can't apply the strategies for different question types correctly and work effectively under pressure. So what we do is work on automating their skills and teaching them how to adapt each strategy to find the right answer as quickly as possible. If you're also struggling with the reading section of the TOEFL test, click on the link below and sign up for the TOEFL prep course we have created to help students around the world prepare for the TOEFL test. We'll analyze tons of reading passages together, evaluate your speaking and writing, and tell you what you need to do differently to get a higher score. The next prefix is extra, beyond. Extracurricular, beyond the regular curriculum. She participates in many extracurricular activities, such as the debate club and the soccer team. Extraterrestrial, beyond the Earth. Scientists are searching for extraterrestrial life. Extraordinary, beyond the ordinary. Extravagant, beyond reasonable limits. Extrasensory, beyond the normal range of senses. Some people claim to have extrasensory perception. Prefix number 4 is bene. It comes from Latin and means well or good. This prefix is found in many English words that convey positive meanings related to goodness or well-being. For example, we all know the word benefit, which means something that is good or helpful. Another example is benevolent, showing kindness and goodwill. Benefactor, a person who gives financial or other support. A good person. Beneficiary, a person who benefits from something. For example, the main beneficiaries of these economic reforms. Benediction, a short blessing. Again, a good thing. Beneficial, producing good results. It's a very useful word for the writing section of the test. If you want to say that something is good and produces good results, you can say it's beneficial. For example, this policy has had a beneficial effect on the economy. The next prefix is anti. Don't confuse it with anti. Like bene, the prefix anti comes from Latin, where it means before. It's used in many English words to indicate something that comes before in time or position. Let's look at a few examples. Antecedent, something that comes before another thing. On the TOEFL, you can often find mentions of historical events that were the antecedents of the current situation, which means they came before the current situation. Antechamber, a small room leading to a main one, often used as a waiting area. So it's before the main room. Guests waited in the antechamber before entering the main hall. Number 6, miss. This prefix means wrongly or badly. We all know that to mistake means to make an error. Now, a few other words with this prefix that are common on the TOEFL test are misunderstand, to fail to understand something correctly, get things wrong. Misinterpret, to interpret incorrectly. Misfit, a person who does not fit in. For example, he felt like a misfit in the new school because he had different interests from his classmates. Misfortune, bad luck. Misbehave, to behave badly. I just saw this word in one of the speaking tasks. I think it was in question 3. Misguide, to guide wrongly. Prefix number 7 is re. It means to do again. This is a very popular prefix, and I see a lot of words with this prefix in all sections of the test. Let's look at some of them. Reabsorb, to absorb again. Reacquaint, to become familiar with again. Readmit, to admit again. Reappear, to appear again. Rearrange, to arrange again. Recopy, to recopy again. Reconsider, to consider again. A few more verbs. Rebuild, to build again. Renew, to make something new again. Reorganize, to arrange something in a new way. Reproduce, to make a copy of something or to produce offspring. Rehabilitate, to restore to a former state or to good health. Reevaluate, to assess or consider something again. Now, the words we just looked at are all verbs. You can also see many nouns with the same prefix. For example, resurgence. It's a very popular word on the TOEFL test that means a return or revival of something that has declined or disappeared, like comeback. A few other typical words with this prefix are rebirth, reconstruction, rediscovery, reevaluation, regeneration. The process of renewal, restoration, or growth when you generate something again. Reinforcement, the act of strengthening or supporting something. Reformation, the process of making changes to improve something. Restoration, the act of returning something to its original condition. Renewal, the process of making something new, fresh, or strong again. Let's look at a few typical TOEFL sentences using some of the words we've just covered. The resurgence of interest in classical music has led to a renewed appreciation of orchestral performances. The teacher used positive reinforcement to encourage good behavior among her students. After a period of decline, The city is experiencing a renewal of economic activity and cultural events. The plant can reabsorb nutrients from its old leaves before they fall off. All these words appear in every section of the test. So if you don't know them, add them to your list. Prefix number 8 is ex. It means out. Exclude, to keep out. Expel, to force someone to leave a place, usually a school or a college. A student was expelled for cheating on the exam. Next, we have 3 prefixes: come, con, cal. They all come from the Latin prefix cum, which means together or with. These prefixes usually form words that convey the idea of coming together or being associated with something. Let's look at some examples. Compliant, meaning rules or standards. Communal, shared by all members of a community. Something for common use, like shared together. Combine, to bring together. Collaborate, to work with someone. Collect, together. Collate, to collect and arrange in order. This verb means to collect and arrange information, text, or data in a particular order, often for the purpose of comparison or organization. It can also refer to arranging the pages of a document in the correct order. For example, the researcher had to collate data from different sources to complete the study. Before you bind the documents, make sure you collate the pages properly. Connect, to join or link together. Convene, to come together for a meeting or a gathering. The board of directors is convening next week to discuss the company's strategic plan for the upcoming year. Prefix number 10 is hyper, excessively. Hypertension, abnormally high blood pressure. Blood pressure that's too high. He takes medicine to control his hypertension. Hyperactive, excessively active. Hyperventilate, to breathe too fast. We hyperventilate because we are afraid. Hypersensitive, extremely sensitive. Hyperinflation, extremely rapid inflation. The country is facing hyperinflation, making basic goods unaffordable. Hypermodern, extremely modern. The 11th prefix is the one you'll see a lot on the TOEFL test. It's inter. The prefix inter means between. Just look at how many words you can make with this prefix. Intercultural, between cultures. The program promotes intercultural understanding and exchange. Interact, talking, dancing, playing a game. All these activities allow you to interact with other people. It's about the communication that happens between people. Students are encouraged to interact with each other throughout the project. Intercept, to stop something from reaching its final destination, to get between that object and the final destination. If you're planning a surprise party for your friend and she arrives half an hour early, you might run to intercept her while everyone rushes to hide. A typical example: the spy managed to intercept the secret message. Interstellar, between stars. The movie is about an interstellar journey to find a new home for humanity. Remember the movie Interstellar? Let me know in the comments below if you've seen it, because it's definitely one of my favorites. If you haven't, you should definitely check it out. It will teach you a lot of useful vocabulary for the TOEFL test. Intervene, to come between. This word comes from the Latin intervenire, meaning to come between. So to intervene is to get involved, to jump in the middle of something, to interfere. By the way, to interfere is another great word with the same prefix. Prefix D means from or down. Descend, to move or fall downward. There is also a noun, descent, which means the process of going down. As in a popular quote from Virgil, "The descent into hell is easy, deduct, to subtract, or take away an amount or part from a total. The tax is deducted from your payments. Degrade, to lower in character or quality, to go down in quality. The quality of cognitive processing is severely degraded. It has gone down in quality. Dehydrate, to remove all water from, or to dry up. To make a raisin, you dehydrate a grape. When you exercise a lot, it's good to drink water so that your body doesn't get dehydrated. Deactivate, to make inactive. Decelerate, to slow down. Decelerate is the opposite of accelerate, which means to go faster. It often describes slowing a vehicle, but it can relate to nearly anything, like a friendship that begins with hanging out nearly every day, but decelerates when you move to a new town or get busy with school or sports. It doesn't mean the friendship is ending or over, just that the pace is now a little slower. One more prefix you need to know is post, after. Post-operative, happening after surgery. The patient needed post-operative care. Postgraduate, a student who is continuing their studies after receiving a bachelor's degree. She is a postgraduate student studying for her master's degree. Post-war, after a war. Now the prefix pre means before. Precedence, the state of being earlier in time. Notice the verb precede in the noun precedence, and you'll be able to remember that precedence is the act of preceding or coming before, either in time or in rank. Safety should take precedence over speed. Predecessor. A predecessor is something that came before the current version. The person you replace at work is your predecessor, just as Pac-Man is the predecessor of modern video games. Predecessors include our ancestors, earlier car models, and all sorts of other predecessors. For example, the new CEO is very different from his predecessor. Predate, to happen earlier than something else. The document appears to predate the invention of the printing press. Preface, an introduction to a book. The preface gives an overview of what the book is about. Prehistoric, before recorded history. A typical sentence on the TOEFL reading section would be something like this. They discovered prehistoric fossils during the excavation. Again, the prefix pre means before, and the historic refers to something from a past culture. Put the two together and you get prehistoric, a word that describes something that comes from a time before history was recorded. Premeditate, to plan in advance. The crime was premeditated, not a spontaneous act. Next is the prefix trans. As you may have guessed, trans means across. This is another very popular prefix on the TOEFL test. We have a lot of words with this prefix. Transport, to carry across. Transatlantic, across the Atlantic Ocean. Transcend, to rise above or go beyond the limits of. Translate, to express in another language. Transmit, to send from one place or person to another. Transverse, lying or being across. When something is transverse, it goes sideways or at an angle. You might take a transverse path across the park. It's a shortcut if you're in a hurry because you don't have to walk the entire length. Finally, the last prefix for today is pro, which means forward or before. Propose, to put forward for consideration. Proponent, a supporter of a cause. She's a strong proponent of renewable energy. This word is the opposite of opponent. Propel, to drive or push forward. The boat is propelled by a strong engine. Promote, to help to flourish, to move forward. The campaign aims to promote healthy eating habits. Proactive, creating or controlling a situation rather than just reaching to it. When you are proactive, you make things happen instead of waiting for them to happen to you. Pro in this context means before, which means When you are proactive, you're ready before something happens. Proliferate, to grow rapidly. The use of mobile phones has proliferated in recent years.
I decided to share 12 idiomatic vocabulary items with you that can easily become an integral part of your answers on the TOEFL speaking test. Let's get started. The first phrase on our list is to pull an all-nighter. It means to stay up all night.
We're about to pull an all-nighter.
You can pull an all-nighter to study for an important exam. I've answered tons of TOEFL speaking questions, and believe me, this expression can come in handy for many of them. Let's take a look at the prompt I showed you at the beginning of this video. It says, "You've been very busy and unable to prepare for the exam tomorrow. You can either stay up late to study and sleep less, or study less and get a full night's sleep. Which will you choose?" When answering this question, you can give a personal example of how you used to pull an all-nighter every time you prepared for an important test. You can use it in situations with either a positive or a negative result. For example, I remember back in college, I'd pull an all-nighter every time I had an important test coming up. I'd shut myself in my room and really focus on reviewing all the material we'd covered earlier. This strategy was very effective and allowed me to ace all my exams. You could also say, "In my freshman year of college, I used to pull an all-nighter before an important test and try to quickly review everything we'd covered. But this strategy didn't work for me. Since I barely slept, I felt miserable the day of the test and couldn't remember anything I'd learned the night before. I ended up failing a few exams and realized that getting a full night's sleep was much more important than cramming at the last minute." As you can see, you can use this example to your advantage, depending on your point of view. Also, this kind of example can work for other questions, not just those related to sleep. The next two helpful phrases to use on the speaking test are ace and pass with flying colors. They both mean to do something very successfully. We often use these expressions in connection with exams. For example, to ace an exam, or to pass an exam with flying colors, which means to get an A or the equivalent. In my previous example, I said, "This strategy was very effective and allowed me to ace all my exams." On the TOEFL, you'll always be talking about college life, so these two idioms may come up quite often. To end up means to reach or arrive at a place, situation, or a condition that was not planned or expected. It's super helpful for both independent and integrated speaking questions. We can use this expression when talking about decision-making. I originally planned to study engineering, but after exploring different fields, I ended up majoring in psychology because it was more in line with my interests. An example of unexpected outcomes: we ended up stranded at the airport due to a sudden snowstorm. Personal growth: when I started learning Spanish, I just wanted to pick up a few phrases for traveling, but I ended up becoming fluent and even studying abroad in Spain for a semester. Life choices: I always thought I would work in finance, but after volunteering at a local school, I ended up pursuing a career in education instead. Example of team projects: our team had different ideas for the project, but we ended up combining our ideas to create a solution that impressed everyone. Phrase number 5 is call it a day. This expression means to stop working on something, usually when you've done enough or when you're tired.
Then call it a day.
It's like saying, "I'm done for now." For example, after studying for several hours, you might decide to call it a day and get some rest. Another example, you're working on a group project, and after hours of effort, someone suggests, "Let's call it a day and continue tomorrow." You can often use this phrase in your answers to question 1 when sharing your personal stories. Another great phrase is "it's a no-brainer." This is a phrase I mentioned at the beginning of this video, and it's also part of one of our speaking templates. If you want to learn effective speaking section templates that will help you score high on test day, click on the link below and join our TOEFL prep course. In addition to the speaking section templates, you'll also find templates for effective writing responses and a detailed analysis of the reading and listening sections. If you would like to have your essays and speaking responses evaluated, choose the Pro package and prepare 2 essays for the consultation. We'll take a complete speaking test together, and I'll evaluate your writing and speaking performance. A no-brainer refers to a decision or a choice that's very obvious or easy to make. It's something that doesn't require much thought.
It's a no-brainer.
For example, if you're offered a great job with a high salary and excellent benefits, you might say, taking this job was a no-brainer. It's a handy phrase for emphasizing that something is clearly the best option. Let's look at how you can use this phrase in your answers. Suppose the question is, do you prefer to study alone or in a group? Explain your choice. You can say, for me, studying alone is a no-brainer. I can concentrate better without distractions, and I have the flexibility to set my own pace. And then share a personal story to illustrate your point. You can also start your answers in question 1 with, it's a no-brainer that, and state your opinion. Next is the phrase, it's not rocket science. It's used to indicate that something is not as difficult as it may seem.
Barb, it's not rocket science.
It's a way of saying, this is simple, it doesn't require any special expertise. So if your friend is struggling to figure out how to use a new app, you could say, don't worry, it's not rocket science. You'll get the hang of it in no time. If you watch my videos to the end, you'll see that I often finish by saying, and remember, scoring 100 plus on the TOEFL isn't rocket science. This means that scoring 100 plus on the TOEFL test isn't as difficult as it may seem. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, be sure to do so and click the bell icon so you don't miss the upcoming videos. Let's look at some examples of TOEFL answers using this idiom. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Learning to cook is an important skill that everyone should have. Answer: I completely agree. Learning to cook is a basic life skill, and it's not rocket science. With a few simple recipes and some practice, anyone can become a decent cook. One more question. Do you prefer online learning to traditional classroom learning? Why or why not? You can say, I prefer online learning because of its flexibility. It's not rocket science to see the benefits. Being able to attend classes from anywhere at any time makes it easier to balance studying with other responsibilities. Phrase number 8 is get out of hand. When something gets out of hand, it means that it has become uncontrollable or chaotic. This phrase is useful when you're discussing situations where things escalate unexpectedly.
Gets out of hand.
You can say, the situation quickly got out of hand. Or, the party got out of hand after too many people showed up. Again, you can use this expression in both integrated and independent speaking tasks. If you're describing what happened in the lecture for question 3, or summarizing the student's opinion in question 2, you can always say that things got out of hand. Let's look at some examples. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Effective time management is essential for academic success. Answer: I agree that time management is critical. Without it, deadlines can quickly get out of hand. I remember one semester I didn't plan my assignments well, and everything piled up at the last minute, which was overwhelming. Another example. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It's important to save money for the future. Answer: I completely agree. If you don't manage your finances carefully, spending can quickly get out of hand. I've seen friends struggle with debt because they didn't keep track of their expenses. And then share a personal story. 9. It turned out that is another useful expression.
And it turns out that...
We use this phrase all the time on the TOEFL speaking test. It often introduces the outcome of a situation, especially if it's surprising or different from what you expected. For example, I was nervous about the interview, but the interviewer turned out to be very friendly. Or, I thought I'd lost my keys, but it turned out that they were in my pocket the whole time. This phrase is perfect for discussing unexpected results or conclusions, and would be useful in any question on the TOEFL speaking test. Phrase number 10 is cram for exams. To cram means to study intensively over a short period of time, usually just before an exam.
Cramming for midterms?
This is a common strategy for students who are trying to learn a lot of material at the last minute. Remember, I used this phrase in my earlier answer. I said, I ended up failing a few exams and realized that getting a full night's sleep was much more important than cramming at the last minute. There you have it, 2 of the phrases we just covered in one sentence. I ended up failing a few exams and cramming at the last minute. As you can see, we can use the verb to cram, which means to study intensely, in a short period of time. You can say, I didn't study much during the semester, so I had to cram for the final exam. Or, When I realized that the final exam was only a few days away, I crammed all weekend trying to remember everything we covered in class. There is also the word cramming, which is a gerund, and can be used as a noun. Cramming for tests can be stressful. Here, cramming works as a noun and refers to the act of studying intensely in a short period of time. We can say, while cramming can sometimes help you remember information in the short term, it's generally not the best way to learn material deeply. 11. To live in a tight budget. To live in a tight budget is another expression you can use in many situations.
We're on a tight budget here.
It means to manage your expenses carefully because you don't have much money to spend. It's about being frugal and making the most of what you have. Talking about our college life, you can always say, as a college student, I had to live in a tight budget, so I cooked my meals at home instead of eating out. Or, living in a tight budget taught me to prioritize my spending. Let's say you're asked the question, if you were to choose between 2 apartments to live in next semester. One apartment is near the campus, but slightly expensive. The other is a little far from the campus, but cheaper. Which one do you prefer and why? You can say, I think living a little far from campus, but cheaper is a better option because it would allow me to save money. I remember as a student, I had to live in a tight budget, so saving money on rent was really important to me. I opted for a more affordable apartment, and even though the commute was a little longer, the extra savings went towards other necessities, like textbooks, groceries, or even a little leisure time. This helped me manage my finances better throughout the semester, and so on. And finally, to opt for or to go for.
I've decided to opt for sanity.
These 2 expressions are very helpful on the TOEFL test, and I just used one of them in my previous answer. I said, so I opted for a more affordable apartment. Simply put, I chose a cheaper apartment. To opt for means to choose or select something from a set of options. To go for is a more casual phrase that also means to choose or decide on something. Let's look at some examples. I opted for the salad instead of the burger because I'm trying to eat healthier. Many students opt for online courses because they offer more flexibility. Given the opportunity, I decided to go for the promotion at work. If the question is, would you prefer to study abroad or in your home country? Explain your choice. You can say, I'd opt for studying abroad because it offers a unique cultural experience and exposure to different educational systems. Another example, would you rather have a job that pays well or one that you enjoy? Explain your choice. Answer, I would go for the job that I enjoy because when you're doing something you love, work feels less like a chore. As you can see, both phrases are about making a choice, but opt for is a bit more formal and often implies a more considered or thoughtful decision. Go for is more casual and can also imply enthusiasm and decisiveness in making a choice. However, both can be used successfully on the TOEFL test. If you are currently preparing for the TOEFL test and aren't sure where to find good practice materials, feel free to use the Lingua TOEFL platform. You can access it from both your laptop and smartphone, and it offers all the tools you need to succeed. Build your vocabulary with the targeted tests. Practice each type of reading questions until you feel fully confident, and work on every section of the test separately. You can also take full mock tests to get an idea of your overall score. Your writing and speaking responses will be evaluated by AI, helping you understand which areas need more attention. The link to the platform is below. We'll talk about 11 phrases like that. They're all high level, but at the same time, very versatile, so you can use them in most of your essays. They're part of a list that I usually share with students in my Zoom lessons, and so far, all of them have helped improve their writing and achieve higher scores. Don't forget to keep track of how many words you know. Create 2 columns, write the words you know in one column and the ones you don't know in the other. Then share how many words you know in the comments below. Let's dive in. The first phrase on our agenda is to tackle the problem of. I love it because it's universal and can be used in almost any essay. It means to address or solve a specific issue effectively. You can use it at the beginning of a sentence. To tackle the problem of unemployment, government should focus on vocational training programs. Or at the end, investing in renewable energy can help tackle the problem of climate change. The second phrase on our list is to play a pivotal role in. It means to have a very important or central part in something. This phrase is useful when explaining why something is essential. So the next time you want to mention that something is extremely important in a process, you can say that it plays a pivotal role in it. For example, education plays a pivotal role in reducing poverty. Technology will play a pivotal role in shaping our future. Phrase number 3 is to shed light on. We often use it to explain or clarify something, especially when discussing complex topics. If you want to provide information about something or make it easier to understand, you shed light on it, just as a streak of light makes things visible in the dark. Some examples. Recent research sheds light on the causes of global warming. The report sheds light on the challenges faced by small businesses. 4. To a significant extent. Use this phrase when describing the degree or the amount of something. It's a formal way to say a lot or very much. For example, technology has, to a significant extent, improved healthcare. Cultural differences influence behavior to a significant extent. 5. To pave the way for. Again, this is one of my favorite phrases because it can be used when talking about progress, technology, infrastructure, or any other developments. If something paves the way for something else, it makes the thing possible. Think of a paved road leading to a goal to help you remember this phrase. For example, innovations in science can pave the way for new medical treatments. So new medical treatments will become possible because of scientific innovations. Or improving infrastructure will pave the way for economic growth. One important thing to remember is that you shouldn't overload your essays with these phrases. Use only the ones that are relevant to your essay to ensure it sounds natural and helps you achieve a high score. Another key aspect is having a clear structure. Just recently, during a TOEFL consultation, I reviewed an essay written by a student with a very good level of English. The essay was almost error-free and well-written, but the overall score was still about 21 or 22. Why? Because the organization of the writing for an academic discussion task was a complete mess. Here's what went wrong. The student presented one reason, but didn't develop it. Then he gave another reason, again without any explanation. After that, he mentioned the opposing opinion in just one sentence and quickly moved on to discussing one student's perspective. If you structure your essay like this, you'll never score higher than 22, no matter how strong your English skills are. So if you're unsure how to properly structure your essays, click the link below to join our TOEFL course. It's especially helpful for those struggling to reach their target score or aiming to achieve their desired score on the first attempt. Now, the 6th phrase is to bring about significant changes in something. You can use it to talk about making major changes or reforms to an existing system, organization, or process. For example, the internet has brought about significant changes in how people communicate. Sustainable practices can bring about significant changes in the environment. 7. To raise concerns about. When people raise concerns about something, it means they're worried about it. The increase in pollution raises concerns about public health. Experts have raised concerns about the impact of social media on teenagers. 8. To be a cornerstone of. Another versatile phrase that can be used in many essays. If something is a cornerstone, it's very important or even foundational to an idea or a system. Education is a cornerstone of a successful society. Trust is a cornerstone of healthy relationships. It's the key. The 9th phrase is to be at the forefront of something. We use it to describe something or someone leading or being the most advanced in a field. Some examples are: the company is at the forefront of artificial intelligence research. Scientists are at the forefront of the fight against cancer. Now, 10 is to bring attention to. When you bring attention to a certain issue or idea, you highlight or make people notice it. You can use it when discussing problems or the negative effects of certain policies. For example, the documentary brings attention to the effects of deforestation. Activists are working to bring attention to climate change. In your writing for an academic discussion task, you can use this phrase like this: I think it's important to bring attention to ... Now, the last phrase in our list today is to foster an environment of. This means to create or encourage a certain atmosphere or situation. For example, schools should foster an environment of creativity and innovation. A supportive workplace fosters an environment of productivity and collaboration. Let's explore 22 essential astronomy terms that might come up on your TOEFL exam. We'll start with simpler terms and then move on to more complex ones. Ready to expand your cosmic vocabulary? Let's launch into it. The first word is celestial. The term describes anything related to the sky or outer space. For example, celestial bodies include stars, planets, and moons. A typical sentence on TOEFL reading might be: the study of celestial phenomena, such as eclipses and comets, can reveal much about the universe. Here, celestial is used to describe objects related to outer space. So remember, anything celestial has to do with space. The next word is orbital. It refers to the path that a celestial body, again a star, a planet, or a moon, takes around another object. For instance, Earth's orbital path around the Sun is elliptical. The orbital period of a planet refers to the time it takes to complete one full orbit around the Sun. Moving on to comets. A comet is a small celestial body made of ice and dust that orbits the Sun. When it comes close to the Sun, it forms a glowing tail. So, a celestial body made of ice with a glowing tail is a comet. Let's look at a sample sentence. Comets, such as Halley's Comet, have highly elliptical orbits that bring them close to the Sun at regular intervals. Now, let's talk about black holes. A black hole is a region in space where gravity is so intense that nothing, not even light, can escape. You've probably seen this term used in many movies about space, such as Interstellar. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen this movie. If not, make sure you do. It's a great film that will teach you many terms related to space and astronomy. An example using this word is: the discovery of a supermassive black hole at the center of galaxies has provided insights into the formation of galaxies. The next word is galaxy. A galaxy is a massive system of stars, star clusters, planets, and dust bound together by gravity. Our galaxy is called the Milky Way. The Milky Way contains hundreds of billions of stars and is just one of many galaxies in the universe. By the way, you just heard me say another interesting word: star clusters. What is a star cluster? This is our next term. A cluster is a group of similar things or people that are very close together. So a star cluster is a group of stars that are gravitationally bound together. A typical star cluster would look like this. Supernova. A supernova is a massive explosion that occurs when a star exhausts its fuel and collapses. For those who don't know, to collapse means to fall down or subside. When a star runs out of fuel, it can no longer support itself against the gravitational pull. This causes the core to contract or collapse, leading to the supernova explosion as the outer layers are violently ejected into space. For example, the light from a supernova can temporarily outshine an entire galaxy, providing critical data for astronomers. Now, let's look at the word asteroid. An asteroid is a small rocky body that orbits the Sun. Asteroids can vary in size from a few meters to hundreds of kilometers in diameter. On the TOEFL listening, you might be asked, what role do asteroids play in our understanding of the early solar system? Remember, in one of our previous videos, I mentioned how one of my students improved his reading scores by learning technical vocabulary. This is the kind of vocabulary you should learn. Choose the most common topics that appear on the TOEFL test. Then, review their basic terms. You don't need to memorize tons of words. 15 to 20 key terms are usually enough. To get a better understanding of these words, read a few articles or watch videos in Crash Course or other educational channels. It's more effective than just learning translations in your native language. This approach will definitely help you on your TOEFL test. For biology, I highly recommend checking out the Amoeba Sisters channel. Another important point is understanding the types of questions for each section and knowing how to approach them effectively. Often, students can understand most of the text in the reading section, but still end up with a score of 22 to 23. Some may know almost every word in the listening section, but get fluctuating scores ranging from 21 to 28. To score consistently high, you need to know exactly what to do in each question type and how to get to the right answers as quickly as possible. In our TOEFL prep course, we'll go over reading passages together, review strategies for the listening section, share high-scoring templates for writing and speaking, and more. You can find the link to the course below. If you want feedback on your writing and speaking, consider the Pro package, but be sure to schedule the consultation at least a week before the test, so you have time to apply the corrections I will suggest. Word number 9 is nebula. A nebula is a large cloud of gas and dust in space where new stars often form. Let's look at sample sentences that use this word. The Crab Nebula, a remnant of a supernova explosion observed in 1054, is one of the most studied objects in the night sky. 2 of our new words in one sentence: nebula and supernova. The bright colors of the nebula are caused by different gases emitting light at different wavelengths. A nebula and a supernova are the words that people often confuse. To avoid this, remember that a nebula is a place where stars are born, and a supernova is a powerful explosion that marks the end of a star's life. The next 3 words are also often confused by students. They are meteoroid, meteor, and meteorite. We've already discussed asteroids, which are rocky bodies that orbit the Sun. A meteoroid is a smaller fragment that breaks off from an asteroid and travels through space. So it's generally smaller than an asteroid. When a meteoroid enters Earth's atmosphere, it becomes a meteor. As it travels through the atmosphere, it produces a bright streak of light and is often called a shooting star or falling star. Finally, if a meteor survives its passage through the atmosphere and lands on Earth's surface, it's called a meteorite. So, a meteorite is essentially a piece of a meteoroid that has made it through the atmosphere and landed on the ground. Let's summarize the sequence. An asteroid can break up into smaller pieces called meteoroids, which then become meteors as they enter the atmosphere. And if they reach Earth's surface, they are called meteorites. A few sample sentences. The bright meteor that appeared in the night sky was a spectacular sight for stargazers. Meteor showers are often named after the constellation from which they appear to radiate. In the last sentence, we had 2 more terms that are important for the TOEFL test. They are meteor showers and constellation. A meteor shower happens when many meteors enter Earth's atmosphere and create bright streaks of light in the sky. It looks like a shower of shooting stars. Many people around the world watch meteor showers, and they are popular events for stargazers and astronomy enthusiasts. Another word on our list is constellation. A constellation is something else that people like to look at in the night sky. It's a group of stars that form a recognizable pattern. There are a lot of constellations in the sky. Let me know your favorite constellation in the comments below. Some sample sentences. The ancient Greeks named many constellations after mythological figures and stories important to their culture. Navigators used constellations to find their way across the oceans before modern instruments were invented. Number 15 is light year. A light year is the distance that light travels in 1 year. For example, the Andromeda galaxy is about 2.5 million light years from Earth. After a TOEFL lecture on astronomy, you might be asked, how is the concept of a light year used to measure distances in space? The next two terms are my favorites. They are red giant and white dwarf. A red giant is a huge star that has expanded and cooled down after using up the hydrogen fuel in its core. The core is the center of a star. It appears red and is much larger than it was in the earlier stages. Now, a white dwarf is a small, very dense star that is left after a star like the Sun has used up all its fuel and shed its outer layers. It's not very bright and it cools gradually over time. So let's recap. A red giant is a large, luminous star in the late stages of its evolution. A white dwarf is a star that was once a big star, but now is a tiny, dense remnant. Lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse happens when Earth comes between the Sun and the Moon, blocking the Sun's light from reaching the Moon. As a result, Earth casts a shadow on the Moon. During a total lunar eclipse, the Moon can turn a reddish color, which is sometimes called a blood moon. There is also a solar eclipse, which happens when the Moon moves between Earth and the Sun, blocking the Sun's light. It can make it look like the Sun is partially or completely covered. So lunar refers to the Moon, while solar refers to the Sun. You'll often find these words on the reading and listening sections of the TOEFL. For example, lunar surface, lunar phases, lunar craters, solar system, solar flares, solar wind. Another word on our list is luminosity. Luminosity in astronomy refers to how bright a star or other celestial object is. It helps astronomers understand how much energy a star produces and can also give clues about its size and stage in its life cycle. For example, a star with high luminosity is much brighter and emits more energy than a star with low luminosity. 21. Stellar. This term refers to stars. For instance, stellar evolution refers to the life cycle of stars. A stellar wind is a flow of charged particles that are emitted from the outer layers of a star. There is also the adjective interstellar, which means between stars or occurring in the space between stars. It describes anything related to the regions of space that lie between individual stars in a galaxy. For example, interstellar dust and gas contribute to the formation of new stars and planetary systems. The spacecraft is designed to travel through interstellar space once it leaves our solar system. These are 22 astronomy terms to help you succeed on the TOEFL exam. Today it's time to delve into the field of biology and discuss 40 words related to the subject that often appear on the TOEFL test. Let me know how many words you know in the comments below, and write winner if you know them all. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get more TOEFL tips and tricks, and click the bell icon to get notified when the next video comes out. Let's get started. Let's begin with enzymes. Enzymes are proteins that speed up chemical reactions in your body. They are needed whenever your body or cells are doing a chemical reaction. For example, enzymes are essential for digesting food. They break down nutrients into smaller molecules that your body can absorb. They help speed up all these reactions, and without enzymes, many vital processes would be too slow to keep people healthy. 2. Symbiosis. Symbiosis is a close relationship between two different species, where they live together and can help each other. For example, bees and flowers. Bees collect nectar from flowers to make honey, which provides them with food. In the process, bees help pollinate flowers, which allows flowers to reproduce. This is symbiosis because both bees and flowers benefit from the interaction. 3. Receptor. A structure in a cell that receives signals. This word is often used in the TOEFL reading passages. For example, I've recently worked with the passage about infrared receptors in snakes. Let's look at the first sentence of this passage. It's thought that the facial pits, or pit organs, on the head of some snakes are specialized infrared heat receptors. So, an infrared receptor is a specialized sensory organ that detects heat emitted by warm-blooded animals. They are located in the pit organs of the head of the snake and allow the snake to find its prey, even in total darkness, which is very helpful when hunting. 4. Mitosis. This word also appears frequently in biology texts and lectures. It's a process of cell division in which the parent cell makes 2 new daughter cells, each with the same number of chromosomes as the parent. To do this, it goes through several different phases to divide and then rebuild the chromosomes. Simply put, mitosis is a way cells divide. 5. Genome, the complete set of DNA, genetic material of an organism. For example, a human genome is all the DNA found in a human cell. It has about 20,000 to 25,000 genes spread across 23 pairs of chromosomes. These genes contain the instructions that are necessary to build and maintain a human being. 6. Stimulus. Anything that causes a response in an organism. For example, light is a stimulus that makes a plant grow toward it. The plural of stimulus is stimuli. In the text about snakes that I've just mentioned, there was a part about a variety of stimuli, such as sound, vibration, or light of moderate intensity. So remember, stimulus, stimuli. If you feel that many of the words we've just covered are unfamiliar to you, it means that your technical vocabulary needs to be expanded. Study subjects such as biology, geology, history, zoology, geography, psychology, astronomy, art, and anthropology. Learn the most basic terms in each field, and then do lots of reading to not only memorize these words, but also to learn about the subject. You can also use the vocabulary lists for different topics that we have created in our TOEFL prep course. They contain the most important words you'll see on the TOEFL test. And remember that a large vocabulary is only half of your TOEFL score. The other half is knowing the right strategies, avoiding panic, and being able to adapt your strategies quickly depending on the question. You can find all of this in our TOEFL prep course. So if your exam is coming up and you want feedback on the writing and speaking sections, feel free to check it out. I'll leave the link in the description below. Let's move on. 7. Estrogen. A hormone that controls female reproductive functions and affects other processes in the body. The next word in our list is mutation. A mutation is a change in DNA that can create new traits or cause health problems. There is also the verb to mutate. Cells can mutate at different times and due to different factors. 9. Photosynthesis. This is one of the most common biology words on the TOEFL test. As you probably all know, photosynthesis is the process plants use to convert sunlight into energy. Plants use photosynthesis to make their own food from sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. 10. Cellular respiration, the process by which cells make energy from food. The adjective cellular means related to the cells of a plant or animal. As we've just discussed, cellular respiration is how cells get energy from food. So, what happens during this process? Cells take in nutrients from the food you eat, such as sugars. Inside the cell, these nutrients and oxygen are combined in a process that creates energy. This energy is then used by the cell to perform its functions, like moving, growing, or dividing. The process also produces waste products, like carbon dioxide and water, that the cell needs to get rid of. So, cellular respiration is like a mini power plant inside your cells that turns food and oxygen into the energy your body needs to work. 11. Homeostasis. Homeostasis is how your body maintains a stable internal environment, like keeping your body temperature just right. For example, if you get too hot, your body sweats to cool down. If you're too cold, your body shivers to produce heat. Both of these actions help keep your body temperature stable. 12. Chloroplast. A chloroplast is the part of a plant cell where photosynthesis takes place, converting sunlight into food. The next two words are genotype and phenotype. The difference between genotype and phenotype is what is encoded in your genes versus what you can actually see or experience. The genotype is the specific set of genes that an organism has. For example, if a person has the genetic code for blue eyes, that code is their genotype. It's the genetic information they inherit from their parents. Now, the phenotype is the observable traits or characteristics of an organism that results from the interaction between the genotype and the environment. The actual blue eye color that you see in a person is their phenotype. It's how the genotype manifests itself in the physical appearance or behavior of the organism. In short, genotype is about the genetic code, like genes for eye color. Phenotype is about the physical expression of that code. For example, having blue eyes. The next two words are eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Eukaryotes and prokaryotes are two basic types of cells that differ mainly in their internal structures. Eukaryotes are cells with a nucleus and other specialized parts, like those in plants and animals. Prokaryotes are simpler cells without a nucleus, such as bacteria. Eukaryotes are more complex and larger, while prokaryotes are smaller and less complex. 17. Speciation. Speciation is the process by which new species form, often when populations separate and evolve differently. On the TOEFL, you'll often see this word in reading passages and hear it in lectures. For example, on the Galapagos Islands, different bird species evolved from a common ancestor. Each species adapted to different food sources and environments, resulting in variations in beak size and shape. 18. Amino acids. Amino acids are the basic building blocks of proteins, which are important for cell structure and function. Another word is lipids. These are fats and oils that store energy and are important components of cell membranes. 20. Neurons. Neurons are nerve cells that carry messages throughout the body, helping with thoughts, feelings, and movement. For example, neurons transmit electrical signals between the brain, spinal cord, and other parts of the body, allowing us to think, feel, and control movement. Another word we'll cover today is cortisol. You've probably heard this word before. Cortisol is a hormone released during stress that helps your body cope with challenging situations. Some typical sentences using this word are: when you're stressed, your body produces more cortisol to help you cope. Over time, high levels of cortisol can lead to health problems, such as high blood pressure and weakened immune function. 22. Anaerobic. Processes that occur without oxygen. For example, anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic means without oxygen. Anaerobic bacteria, unlike humans, don't need oxygen to survive. 23. Secrete. To secrete means to produce and release a liquid. I've heard this word used a few times on TOEFL speaking. There was a lecture in question 4 that mentioned that some plants secrete a sticky substance. So remember, when a cell or gland releases a substance, such as sweat or saliva, to perform a specific function, we can use the verb to secrete. 24. RNA. A molecule involved in protein synthesis and gene expression. 25. DNA. The molecule that carries genetic information. 26. Moisture. A liquid such as water in the form of very small droplets, either in the air, in a substance, or on the surface. For example, a rich soil retains moisture. 27. Foliage. The leaves of a plant. 28. Hibernation. A period of rest in some animals during the winter to conserve energy when food is scarce. This word is very common in TOEFL lectures. One of the lectures I like to analyze with my students is about hibernation. We can also use the verb to hibernate, which means to go into a deep sleep during the winter. Animals like bears, hedgehogs, and chipmunks hibernate in winter. Another word to discuss is the verb to forage. It means to look for food in the wild. A forager is someone who searches for food. Humans can also be foragers. Historically, early human societies were hunter-gatherers who foraged for nuts, seeds, and other edible plants, as well as hunted animals. Even today, some people practice foraging as a hobby. Foragers may gather wild mushrooms, berries, herbs, and other natural foods. Now, foraging refers to the act of searching for and collecting wild food resources. The next word is scavenger. It's an animal that eats dead plants or animals, helping to clean up the environment. Some examples of scavengers are vultures and ravens. As unpleasant as scavenging may seem, it's important to remember that scavengers play a crucial role in ecosystems by helping to recycle nutrients and reduce the spread of disease. 31. Internal. Internal means happening or existing inside. For example, internal mechanisms or processes occur within an organism. Digestion is an internal process. Now, external is existing or happening outside a person, a company, a place, or a country. Factors or stimuli that come from outside an organism are called external. 33. Species. A species is a distinct group of animals or plants that share common characteristics and can interbreed. Your poodle and your bulldog are the same species, but your hamster and your goldfish are not. The next two words are food web and food chain. A food web is a network of who eats whom in an ecosystem, showing how energy moves through living things. Now, a food chain is a sequence of organisms where each one is eaten by the next, starting with plants. Food chains and food webs often appear in TOEFL lectures and integrated speaking tasks. The next word is ecosystem. I've already used it a few times in this video. It's a community of living things, such as plants and animals, that interact with each other and their environment, such as air, water, and soil. It's like a complex web where everything depends on everything else. 37. Heterotroph. A heterotroph is an animal that can't make its own food supply, so it must eat other things, such as plants or other animals, to survive. Humans are heterotrophs because we eat plants or meat to stay alive. There are three types of heterotrophs: herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores. Herbivores eat grass, carnivores eat other animals, and omnivores eat both. 38. Autotroph. Plants that produce their own food are called autotrophs. Plants, algae, and some bacteria are autotrophs and form the basis of food chain. 39. Crustacean. A crustacean is a member of class of arthropods that live in water. These aquatic animals have exoskeletons. Some of your favorite seafood comes from crustaceans: crabs, lobsters, and shrimp. If you don't know the words arthropods or aquatic, you should check out the previous episode where we talked about zoology vocabulary. Finally, the last word is biodiversity. Biodiversity is a shortened form of two words: biological diversity. Biological refers to the study of life forms. Diversity means many and different. When you have many animals or plants living in one place, you have biodiversity. For example, scientists believe that the deep ocean may be as rich in biodiversity as the planet's tropical rainforests. These are 40 biology words you'll see a lot on the TOEFL test. Knowing them will help you understand passages and lectures. So let's dive right into zoology. Zoology is a branch of biology that focuses on the study of animals. We'll look at 109 words from this field that you need to know for the TOEFL test. To help you memorize the zoology vocabulary better, we've created a small PDF with all the words I cover in this lesson. You can pause the video now and download it by clicking on the link down below. That way, you won't have to write down all the words, and you'll have extra help as you watch the rest of the episode. In today's list, I've included many animals that often appear on the TOEFL test. We won't focus much on them because knowing these words isn't a must. However, they will definitely make taking the test a lot easier. For example, in the speaking section, you may be asked to summarize a lecture about bobcats. If you've no idea what a bobcat is, it may be more difficult for you to understand the lecture and answer the question. Now, if you know that a bobcat is an animal in the cat family that looks like this, you'll understand the lecture better. So for animals, we're going to have little picture quizzes. You'll see pictures of animals changing one by one, and your task will be to guess what these animals are. Let's dive right in. Let's begin with the classes of animals. When classifying animals, scientists divide them into two groups: invertebrates, which is our first word, and vertebrates, the second word on our list. Invertebrates are animals without a backbone. They can live on land, like insects, spiders, and worms, or in water. Some examples of invertebrates are, and now it's time for your first vocabulary test. Look at the pictures and name the animals you see. I'll give you the correct word in a few seconds.
Sea anemones.
Sea urchins. Crayfish. Termites. Snails. All of these animals are invertebrates. By the way, don't forget to keep track of how many words you know, and then share your results at the end of the video. For example, 75 out of 109, or 100 out of 109. The next word is arthropods. An arthropod is an invertebrate animal with no internal spine. A spine is a backbone that vertebrates have. A body made of segments joined together, and a hard covering, like shell. Arthropods include insects and similar creatures. Spiders are a common example of arthropods. Other typical examples of arthropods are dragonflies, ants, beetles, ladybugs, flies, shrimp, and grasshoppers. Back to vertebrates. These are animals with a backbone. They include mammals. Mammals are warm-blooded animals that have fur or hair, give birth to live offspring, with a few exceptions, and produce milk to feed their young. Time for a quick vocabulary quiz. A hamster, a whale, a bat, a giraffe, and even a human are all mammals. Polar bears, orcas, sloths are those slow-moving mammals known for their relaxed, laid-back lifestyle. Meerkats. Now, all mammals are vertebrates, but not all vertebrates are mammals. Birds are also vertebrates. How would you call this bird? It's an eagle. And this one? It's a hawk. Owl. Falcon. Ostrich. Raven. Vertebrates also include reptiles, which are cold-blooded animals with scaly skin. Some examples are snakes, lizards, reptiles that have scales for skin, a long body, a pointed tail, and usually 4 legs, turtles, tortoises, crocodiles, and alligators. Here's an interesting question for you. What's the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? Turtles live mostly in water, such as ponds, rivers, and oceans, but some species can also live on land. Tortoises, on the other hand, are primarily land dwellers, often found in dry or grassy areas. Turtles spend most of their time in water and come ashore mainly to lay eggs. Now, tortoises spend their entire lives on land, in burrows or under rocks to stay cool. One important note. As I always say, knowing a lot of words is a great help on your TOEFL test, but it's not enough to get a 100 or higher. If you really want to score high, you should know the question strategies and, most importantly, use them effectively. Recently, I've been busy with consultations after our TOEFL prep course and my one-on-one sessions, and since I'm always analyzing the mistakes my students make, I've once again come to the conclusion that most students only need to change a few minor things to get the score they really need. Instead, they spend time, money, and effort retaking the test over and over again, trying to get their target score. For example, most students usually come to our sessions with a score of 22 to 23 on the speaking test. Not because they have a poor level of English, but because they're so worried about following all the rules that when they start to speak, they stutter, hesitate, and produce the worst possible answers. The same goes for reading. Most of the students I see in my sessions are well aware of the strategies for each question. Yet, they don't use those strategies well enough to find the right answers quickly. So we have to go through each question type together, and then they start getting high scores. So, if you're struggling with any section of the test, you can take our TOEFL course, where we'll teach you all the skills you need to finally ace the TOEFL test. The link is below. As always, if you choose the Pro package with a post-course consultation, be sure to schedule it at least a week before the test. That way, you'll have time to implement all the corrections I've made. Amphibians are another class of vertebrates. These are animals that can live in water and on land. A typical amphibian is a cold-blooded vertebrate that is born in water and breathes with gills. This is another word from our list. Gills look like this. As amphibians grow, their lungs develop so that they can also live on land. Some examples of amphibians are frogs and toads. Frogs are smooth and slimy with long legs, while toads are bumpy, dry-skinned with shorter legs. Finally, fish are aquatic vertebrates with gills and fins. We've already discussed what gills are. Now this is how fins look. Time for another small animal vocabulary test. Clownfish. It's a swordfish. This is a herring. A seahorse. A trout. The first block of our lecture covered. Congratulations! Now, you may ask yourself, do I really need all these words? Will they be used on the TOEFL? The answer is of course. Just recently, I was going through a reading passage that mentioned the invertebrate fauna. So, let's keep going. A few other words to know are specimen. A specimen is a sample of something, such as a specimen of blood or body tissue taken for medical testing. In zoology, this word means a sample or example of an animal, often used in scientific studies. For example, a specimen of an African lion might be used to study its anatomy, behavior, or genetics. Again, a few days ago, I was analyzing a TOEFL lecture with one of my students, and there was a part about a rare insect specimen. Let's continue. Animals can be warm-blooded or cold-blooded. Warm-blooded animals are those that can maintain a nearly constant body temperature, regardless of the environment in which they live. They can also be called endotherms. Remember that endotherms are warm-blooded animals. For example, mammals and birds are endotherms. Now, cold-blooded animals are those that rely on the outside environment to regulate their body temperature. They're also called ectotherms. Ectotherms are cold-blooded animals. Some examples of ectotherms are reptiles, amphibians, and fish, which are the words we already know. Great job! The TOEFL integrated writing task likes to explore the topic of endotherms and ectotherms, and you'll often find these words in reading passages and lectures. So I suggest you write them down if you haven't heard them before. Animals can also be diurnal and nocturnal. Diurnal animals are those that are active during the day. For example, lions, squirrels, cheetahs. Nocturnal animals as you may have guessed, are active during the night. Some common examples of nocturnal animals are owls, hedgehogs, raccoons, and bats. So diurnal is active during the day, and nocturnal is active during the night. When studying animals, scientists also examine their dietary habits. Animals can be herbivores. These are animals that eat mostly plants. Some examples of herbivores are a kangaroo, a hippopotamus, a rhinoceros, or a rhino. Carnivores. These are animals that eat other animals. Examples: anteaters, sharks, tigers, wolves. Omnivores are animals that eat both plants and animals. Some examples of omnivores are wild boars, bears, skunks, and of course humans. On the TOEFL, you'll often see mentions of carnivores, omnivores, and herbivores in lectures and reading passages. You may also see adjectives: carnivorous, omnivorous, and herbivorous. For example, carnivorous plants, herbivorous animals. If you've taken TOEFL speaking tests, you definitely see in question 4 about carnivorous plants. Now, you know that carnivorous plants are plants that catch and eat animals, usually insects, to get nutrients. When we looked at the examples of omnivores, we saw the word wild boars. Boars are wild animals. Animals can be wild or domesticated. Domesticated animals are animals that have been bred and trained by humans over generations to live with and be useful to people. Let's test how well you know domesticated animals. Some typical domesticated animals are a hen, an ox, a yak, a calf, a donkey, a cow. Now, a few wild animals are leopards. Note the pronunciation: leopard. Stags, which are male deer, and beavers. Speaking of beavers, they are rodents. This is another word you'll see a lot on the TOEFL. Rodents are mammals that have a single pair of sharp incisors, which are narrow-edged teeth at the front of their mouth, in both the upper and lower jaws. Mice, rats, squirrels, beavers, and hamsters are all rodents. So, when you hear the word rodent, remember that it's a small animal with sharp teeth. Rodents are primarily prey rather than predators. They are often hunted by various predators, including birds of prey, such as hawks and owls, carnivorous mammals, such as foxes, and even larger reptiles, like snakes. As you can see, you already know so many words: hawks, owls, reptiles. What about prey and predators? Animals that are hunted and eaten by other animals are called prey. For example, hares are a typical example of prey. Predators are animals that hunt and eat other animals, such as wolves. Finally, let's talk about habitats. Habitats are places where animals live. Your habitat is the environment you're used to living in. Habitats can be aquatic or terrestrial. Aquatic animals live in water. Now, terrestrial animals live on land. Aquatic habitats include freshwater environments, such as lakes, rivers, or ponds, and saltwater environments, such as oceans. Freshwater animals include fish, such as trout, amphibians, such as frogs, and insects, such as water striders. Saltwater animals include sea anemones and jellyfish. Other aquatic animals include oysters, sea otters, rays, seahorses, seals, clams, squid, and sea lions. On the TOEFL, you may also find a collocation, marine animals. These animals live in the ocean or sea, not in fresh water. They're a subset of aquatic animals, but are found only in saltwater environments. Marine animals include a wide range of species, such as sharks, clownfish, whales, dolphins, seals, and starfish. Simply put, while all marine animals are aquatic, not all aquatic animals are marine. Aquatic animals can live in either fresh or salt water, while marine animals are adapted to ocean environments. Speaking of terrestrial or land animals, we've already covered many of them. Two more examples that I think are interesting to mention are a moose and a gazelle. As you can see, habitats are different environments where animals live. Some typical habitats are freshwater habitats, deserts, grasslands, wetlands, estuaries, rainforests, oceans, savannas, and coastal habitats. Ready for one last animal vocabulary check? What's this animal called? A humpback whale. All of you have probably done the integrated essay about humpback whales. If you haven't, try it. You can find it on the KMF platform, TPO 49. The next one is vultures. Amoeba. There is a cool YouTube channel called the Amoeba Sisters that I highly recommend to improve your biology vocabulary. They explain difficult concepts in a fun and easy to understand way. A baleen whale. The last animal for today is a bobcat. Congratulations! As you can see, we're closing this episode with the same word we started with. If you want to have all the words in one place, use the link below to download our free PDF file. These are 109 zoology words that will definitely help you succeed on your TOEFL test. Now it's time to practice. I highly recommend that you take a few practice TOEFL tests, and I'm 100% sure you'll see many of these words on the reading, listening, writing, and speaking sections of the exam. We're going to dive into 50 most common history terms that will help you better understand history-related topics on the TOEFL. Without further ado, let's get started. To make learning history words easier, I've divided the words into categories. The first category is people in an ancient city. Let's imagine a typical ancient city and the people who live in it. There is a ruler, a person who leads a country, such as a king or a queen. If there is a ruler, there should also be courtiers. Courtiers are people who work in the royal court of a king, queen, or other ruler. Courtiers have important roles, such as advising the ruler, managing court events, or entertaining the royal family. There are also priests, people who work for a religion. They teach others how to pray and help people worship. In TOEFL reading passages and lectures, you'll often see the word artisan. Artisans also live in the city and are people who make things by hand. For example, they might make pottery or jewelry. If there are artisans who make things, there are also those who sell them. Merchants. Merchants buy and sell goods to make money. In the past, merchants played an important role in trade, traveling to different places to exchange items, such as spices, fabrics, or food. There are also peasants, farmers who work on land. They usually do it for someone else, like some wealthy landowners, kings, or counts. Who are counts? Counts are noblemen like dukes, but less powerful. They're important people who own land and have power over a region, and they often serve a king or emperor. Some counts may serve as colonels. A colonel is a high-ranking officer in the army. He is usually in charge of commanding a regiment or a large group of soldiers. A colonel is below a general, but above a major or a captain in most armies. When a ruler wishes to make peaceful arrangements with another ruler, he often sends delegates. Delegates are people chosen to represent others in meetings or decisions. Delegates can also act as messengers or negotiators between cities or kingdoms. However, if they fail to reach a peaceful agreement with a neighboring region, invaders may come. An invader is a person or army that enters another place to take control. They do this by force and often cause destruction in the area they invade. Before we move on to the next category, I have some exciting news. We've put together a Quizlet flashcard set of all the history terms you'll need to tackle history passages and lectures with ease. This set includes all the words we'll cover in this video and more. The great thing about Quizlet is that it helps you learn a lot of words quickly, keeps everything organized in one place, and makes reviewing super easy. Just to be clear, this is not a sponsored link. I use Quizlet myself, and many of my students use it to learn up to 100 words a day. So feel free to get the set by clicking the link down below. We offer even more sets like this as part of our TOEFL course. These sets cover all the academic topics you need to know and help you save time. You won't have to write down new words from tests, lectures, and passages to improve your academic vocabulary, as many students do. You'll be fully prepared for any TOEFL question that comes your way. If you'd like to take your preparation to the next level, just click on the link below and join our TOEFL community. Now, for the next word category, exploration. Let's go deeper into the past and talk about the first inhabitants of Canada. Inhabitants are people who live in a particular place. So the original inhabitants of Canada are the first people to live in Canada. When the European colonists came to present-day Canada, they discovered several different native tribes living there. Now, colonists are people who move to live in a new land and establish a colony there. For example, some of the first colonists to come to Canada were from Great Britain and France, and they came to discover more territories for their countries. As I mentioned earlier, they discovered different native tribes. Tribes are groups of people who live together and share customs and beliefs. Some of the tribes the colonies found were hunters and farmers. They got their food by hunting and farming. Others were hunter-gatherers. Hunter-gatherers are people who get their food by hunting animals and gathering plants. And some tribes were nomadic. These are people who do not have a permanent home, but move from place to place in search of food, water, and shelter. For example, nomadic tribes that lived in Canada followed bison herds. This means that they got their food by hunting bison. Herds, by the way, are groups of animals of the same species that live and travel together, such as cows or sheep. Going back to the colonists, their purpose was to explore new lands and build settlements, and their home countries often supported them with money and resources. Settlements are places where people build homes and live. They can range from small villages to large cities. There are different types of settlements: coastal settlements and inland settlements, or sedentary settlements and nomadic settlements. Coastal settlements are those located near the coast, typically by the ocean or sea. Inland settlements are located away from the coast, in the interior of a landmass. As for sedentary settlements, these are places where people live permanently and don't move around, while nomadic settlements, as you've probably guessed, are temporary and move from place to place. For the last word category, which I called conflict, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, the people had lived under the oppression of a cruel ruler. Oppression is when people are treated unfairly or even cruelly by those in power over a long period of time. For years, the ruler had seized power and used it to control and exploit the people. To seize power is to take control of the government. To exploit means to use something or someone unfairly for one's own benefit. The people, tired of the injustice, began to revolt. To revolt is to fight against a ruler or their laws or rules. One day, a small group of citizens decided to start an uprising. An uprising is when a group of people start fighting against the government or those in power because they're unhappy with the way things are. They allied with nearby villages and began to resist the ruler's forces. To ally means to join with others for a common goal. It's like two friends getting together to help each other or work in a project together. In history, countries or groups of people might ally to fight against a common enemy or to support each other. As they fought back, the kingdom was thrown into complete upheaval, and an invasion from neighboring lands added to the chaos. An upheaval is a big, sudden change or disturbance that causes a lot of confusion or trouble. It's like when everything is turned upside down and things feel messy or chaotic. For example, when a country goes through a revolution, it can be an upheaval because everything changes quickly and a lot of people are affected. As for invasion, you already know who an invader is. So you can guess that invasion is when an army enters another place, usually to take control of it by force. The ruler tried to defeat the people, but the people were united and determined. To defeat means to win against someone in a fight. One by one, they began to conquer the ruler's castles. To conquer is to take control of a place or people by force, usually through fighting or war. The once powerful king was forced to surrender, as protests spread throughout the kingdom. To surrender is to stop fighting and give up. In the end, the people restored peace by abolishing the old regime and putting an end to the ruler's reign. To restore means to bring something back to the way it was before. To abolish is to get rid of something, like a law. A reign is the period of time when a king, queen, or ruler is in power. So the people brought back peace, got rid of the old regime, and ended the period of time when the ruler was in power. A new government was formed, one that promised freedom and equality for all. The kingdom was rebuilt, and the people lived happily, knowing that they had fought for their rights and won. The end. One question many students preparing for the TOEFL test often ask is, where can I find good practice materials? You can use the Lingua TOEFL platform for that. So how can you make the most of your practice? First, go to the vocabulary section. Start with TOEFL essential words. Then move on to campus vocabulary. This is especially useful for the listening and speaking sections. After that, work through the academic, advanced, and idiomatic vocabulary lists. In some exercises, you'll be asked to choose the closest meaning of a word, just like in the vocabulary questions on the reading section. In others, you'll fill in the gaps with the correct word. These tasks are designed to help you remember the vocabulary quickly and easily. Next, head to the reading practice section and complete a few full reading tests. Keep track of your results. Then move on to the reading question types section. Focus on one type of question at a time until you feel confident with it. Once you've practiced each type, go back and do a few more full reading tests to see how much you've improved. In the speaking section, you can either take full tests or practice individual questions one by one. The same goes for the listening section. If you're short on time, just choose one conversation or lecture and go through that. It's better to practice consistently every day rather than study intensively only once in a while. The same rule applies to the writing section. For both speaking and writing, your performance will be evaluated by AI, so you'll get a clear sense of where you currently stand and what you need to work on. You can start using the platform by clicking the link below. That wraps up our video for today. Thanks for watching. If you want to master all 4 sections of the TOEFL exam and get a great score on test day, click on the link below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more tips and tricks on the TOEFL test. Remember, scoring 100 plus on the TOEFL isn't rocket science. It's the little things you do that make all the difference. As always, I wish you all a stellar TOEFL score. Until next time.